Welcome Eddie Ray from Progressive Sports. He's the founder and director. So Eddie, over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, so I'm the founder and managing director of Progressive Sports. So we operate within the education sector, and we fundamentally are all about inspiring and encouraging children to be physically active. We do that by the work that we do with primary schools and some secondary schools. And we work in our community, so we provide community activities, whether that's holiday courses or weekly classes, but we're all about children getting physically active through the sports that we provide in and out of school.
Okay, fantastic. So let's take a little kind of look back at before you founded Progressive Sports. What was your journey? What qualifications did you get? Where did you study?
So I suppose going way back when to maybe when I was in primary school, I suppose the love of sport and being active was something that I always had. I carried that through obviously my education, so through primary into secondary. I think it definitely was the thing that I really enjoyed in secondary school in terms of the subject. Maybe could have focused a little bit more academically and really just love being active and love playing sport. Did a little bit, outside of school as well. So, played for some teams and stuff like that. Was never quite good enough to play at like an elite level. And then went to college. I suppose when I left school, I was like, what do I do? But I just followed my passion, really. I followed what I enjoyed. Didn't have a real great plan, but I just knew I wanted to do something that was involved in sport. So I did sports studies at college, did that for 3 years. While I was at college as well, I did my FA coaching badge. That was my first exposure to actually coaching. Did a little bit on the course, but because it covered a broad range of topics, we didn't really delve too much into coaching. And that was my first real experience. And then working with children, did a bit of support in schools, and kind of thought, yeah, working with kids, getting them active. Obviously, the main thing then was the football coaching. But yeah, that was the early stages of, I suppose, sowing that seed and my involvement in working with children and delivering sport.
Okay, so what was your main kind of inspiration behind forming Progressive Sports? Have you always wanted to kind of run your own business, be your own boss?
Yeah, I think I've reflected on this a few times, and I think I firmly knew I would run a business. I don't know where that come from or why I thought that. But I really did think I would run a business. At the very early stages of that, I didn't know what that would be. And obviously, I suppose I took the vocational thing of like, I really enjoy sport. So obviously, let's just see how that pans and see how that evolves. And obviously, that then evolved into obviously forming Progressive Sports after, years of working for some other people on a self-employed basis. So I already had that little bit of, I suppose, flexibility because I was self-employed. And it's probably worth mentioning as well, and this probably maybe from an environment perspective, probably did have an effect on me, but I didn't probably know, probably subconsciously I picked these things up. But, my uncle ran a business, my dad ran a business. So I think probably subconsciously I maybe picked some of these things up as I went along. So, yeah.
It was in the genes then.
It was in the genes, yeah. It was always destiny.
So what's kind of, if you give a little background about kind of the journey that Progressive Sports has been on, from the early years, starting up yourself, to where you are now in terms of the business and growth?
Yeah. So I suppose those early days, it was myself and one member of staff. So we were working all the schools, delivering all the services. I was then obviously having to grow the business on the side because a lot of my day was taken up in terms of delivering our services into schools. Those early days, we did get some quite good growth. We were probably early people into the market around some new legislation that was brought into schools where teachers were allowed more planning time. This created a little bit more of a market for the kind of things that we were doing, because typically before 2005, organisations like ourselves were particularly just delivering after school activities or holiday activities. But that particular legislation brought about the fact that we were doing a lot more work in school curriculum time. And then those early days, we doubled the business year on year for the first 3 years. Was passionate about just keep growing it. Did I have a business plan that I was trying to execute? No, I was just running every day and just trying to just grow the business really. And I suppose that bit of naivety was probably a good thing in terms of some of the decisions we made. And we franchised the business in 2009, took our first franchisee on board in 2010. And have acquired obviously more franchisees over the years, and the business is in a much different position in terms of the amount of customers we work with, the coverage that we provide, and the professionalism of the business as well, and the standards that we operate under.
Okay, yeah, it's quite kind of insightful looking at the kind of business plan and the fact that you just kind of went with it. Kind of where do you see yourselves in the next 5 years? Have you got more of a plan now for those 5 years, or are you still on the same kind of mindset of let's just go with it?
Yeah, I mean, we do plan now, and I think that's probably something we've been doing probably over the last 5 years. And I'm not by no means saying don't plan, because obviously that's an important part of running a business. We all need to set our compass in a direction and be clear on what we want to achieve. So I think that certainly helps you to make the right steps towards achieving whatever those goals are. But I think just those early days, there was definitely a bit of naivety involved, but maybe if we did have had a clearer plan, we maybe could have accelerated things a bit quicker. In terms of how the next 5 years will look, I think we will evolve with the market. It's an ever-changing landscape, whether that's legislation that's coming in from the government, different funding, different outcomes that the schools have got to meet. So we will move with that, and we're seeing a little bit of that with more emphasis on health and well-being stuff. So that's something definitely we are looking at, is how as a business, not just getting the children active, we look at the whole child from a mental and emotional aspect. So we're definitely looking at those things. And I think probably acquisitions on the cards as well. We probably will look at acquiring companies probably in the next sort of 5 years. So some competitors. I think that's probably something that we'll start to look at as well.
Exciting times ahead then. So I guess you kind of touched on it, but what about the changes in the industry over the years? I guess it kind of started out as coaching after school clubs. Then you've talked about different legislations. What else have you noticed the kind of change over the years?
Yeah, I think the main thing is a lot more professional than probably what it was in those early days. I think what has helped, because I think we were probably one of the early people into the industry. The industry is still very, it's a very young sort of sector that we're operating in. So I think we're probably one of those early adopters. I think because the business owners have matured, the businesses have matured with them. And I think that's helped just really to raise the standards, the professionalism. And we're all really passionate about what we do. We network with, some of our competitors as well. So I think everyone's grown up a little bit. Everyone's not so insular and, well, we're not going to go and speak to our competitors because they're competition or things. So we've all, I think, kind of matured, and there's obviously certain things that have been brought in as well to make sure the minimum standards that are delivered into schools are met. And we're obviously a big advocate of that and a big pusher of that, because at the end of the day, we just want the best for the kids, and just if so standards need to be delivered and quality needs to be maintained.
If you kind of work together, then you can kind of help create those standards as well, which is ultimately better for the children that you're working with.
100%.
So looking at your kind of franchise business, if you're looking to take on a franchisee, what do you look for in kind of like a coach or a franchisee?
Well, we look for because obviously there is some similarities. Obviously, there's probably different things that we're looking at for someone that's going to be coming in and running a business, as opposed to somebody that's going to be, coming in and delivering our services into schools. But there will be those soft skills, those personal skills, that attitude, those traits that we want in people. We want people that are ambitious. If we can't meet their ambitions, we still want them to be ambitious to grow in the business, and I'm sure they're the kind of things that we want. So it is those soft skills. If you're looking at a franchisee, then of course we want a track record. We want to look at what they've done previously, but we do needs somebody that's very much open-minded and wants to develop, wants to improve, will take on the model and then, actually deliver it, and follow obviously the things that we put in place. So I suppose there's a difference between the soft and the hard skills, really. And I think you can teach the hard skills, can't you? Sometimes them soft skills are what makes that person, really, and I think they are more important. So.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's very kind of apparent in the work that we're doing as well, is coming from elite sport, they're looking at the soft skills of, students. Can they fit into that department? They can teach them how to work or be an analyst or do whatever, but have they got the personality to fit into, that department where you're going to work with people, 9-10 hours a day? So that's a very good point that you've just made. Big question, the business side of it. So anyone looking to start their own coaching kind of business, what lessons have you learned over the years? And what advice would you give to someone who's looking to start out?
I mean, there's lots of lessons. It's hard to kind of distill it into, one or two things. I mean, it does take a lot of persistence, a lot of hard work. You've got to be resilient. You've got to get setbacks. There's not one single thing that's going to really transform the business for you. There's, incremental, lots of different steps that you need to do, lots of things that you need to do correctly, and lots of just hard work and graft, really. And I can't butter it up any other way, really. It does come down to a little bit of dedication, persistence. If it's something that you're really, really passionate about, I'm sure, you will give the time and effort to it. And you've got to be able to, take those setbacks, because they are going to happen, and, be really persistent in, drilling that through, and lots of hard work and effort. And I'm sure, if that's something that you really want to do and a step you want to take, then you will make it happen, because it's certainly not for everybody running a business. But you'll know that yourself. I think if it's inside of you, you need to let it out and you need to go for it.
There's a lot of resilience. It's what you need.
You do, yeah, you do. There's countless setbacks and bumps in the road that you're going to hit. But stay strong. It's probably good also getting mentors and people that have, maybe are already doing what you want to do, or can guide you through some of those, potential, pitfalls and stuff like that. So if you've got somebody that can mentor you, that's always a good thing to look to do.
Yeah, no, good advice. Okay, then, to finish, what 2 skills or attributes would you look for in somebody who's going to work with you, whether that's a coach, someone who's going to work in your office, or a franchisee? What are those 2 kind of skills or attributes?
I think you want someone that's humble, not too much ego, really. I think, because you've got to be a team player. It's not about me, it's about we. It's about the whole team, really. So I think I want somebody that's, got those interpersonal skills and those soft skills that we've mentioned, but is really, is humble. There's not too much other stuff that comes with him, and also you want somebody that's, hungry, ambitious. Yes, they need to have those hard skills to be able to deliver the job, but we mentioned before, we can teach those. I want someone that's a little bit hungry and ambitious, and wants to kick on and wants to move on, because that can only benefit the business, and the business will be there to facilitate their ambition, hopefully, and help them to achieve what they want to achieve.
Fantastic. So humble and ambitious. That's great. Well, Eddie, thank you very much for your time.